Hello, Cloud Warriors, and welcome to the next chapter. This chapter, we will discuss everything about data preparation. Now, if you are following along, we have already discussed how can we fetch our data and get into AWS. Next, we will talk about different techniques that we can use to clean and prepare our data so it's ready for our machine learning model. We'll also look at few AWS services that helps us achieve this. So, when you are ready, let's jump into the next lecture. So, let's go ahead and discuss some data preparation concepts. If you have ever had your own garden or shopped from a local farmer's market, you know that the vegetables there are sometimes dirty, right? They came straight from the ground. Now, before we consume it and make it into a delicious casserole, we need to clean it, remove all the dirt and sanitize it. We could think about this same process as what we need to do our data before we feed it into our machine learning model. The reason that we do this is because machine learning algorithms like numbers, they like math. And since a lot of our data is text based, sometimes we need to convert those to numbers. Sometimes we need to handle values that are missing, and sometimes we need to find inaccuracies or outliers upfront. So our machine learning models can make the correct predictions with the data that we give it. So if we take a look at our machine learning cycle, we know that we are trying to clean and prepare our data. But before we can do that, we first need to understand our data. Once we understand our data, we can start to use different techniques that helps us transform it or prepare it. So our machine learning model can make proper predictions with it. It can take the values of the dataset, apply it to whatever algorithm the model is using, and output the correct result. Now, the concept of data preparation is just simplify put. It's changing our dataset so it's ready for our machine learning problem. Now, this can come in many different formats and we can use many different techniques. But essentially, what we are trying to do is do things like remove incomplete and incorrectly formatted values, irrelevant data, and remove duplicate data. Sometimes we need to change text-based values into numeric values, group different attributes together, combine different attributes, take text strings and break them into different tokens, and redesign features in general. Now, not all of these techniques are going to be relevant for every dataset, but depending on the problem on hand and machine learning algorithm you are using, you could pick and choose different techniques to use to prepare your data. What this does is it ensures that the relevant features are used for the problem at hand. And just know that the data preparation process is usually the most time consuming part of the machine learning. The reason that is true is because if we feed a machine learning algorithm unprepared data, then the model that it creates is going to be useless. It's not going to solve any problem. We need to feed it good data so it can produce good results. Over the next few lectures, I'll discuss a few different techniques and processes that we can use to prepare our data. Now, these aren't the only techniques to use, but there are some of the most important ones that we use in machine learning. We'll start off by talking about categorical encoding, and this is just changing text-based values into numeric values. We'll next talk about feature engineering, which is essentially just transforming our features so they are relevant for the problem at the end. And finally, we'll talk about different techniques to use to handle missing values within our dataset. So for example, let's take this dataset with some Star Wars character names and some attributes about those characters. Now the features of this dataset are name, evil, and the affiliation. Some of the first things that I noticed within this data is that the formatting is off for a couple of our attributes, right? We know that in the evil column, we want a 1 or a 0. So values like no, we would need to change. We can also see in the affiliation column that we are looking for either rebel or empire. So the value REB we will need to map to rebels. Next we see we have a few missing values as well. So we'll need to take care of those. And we'll talk about some different techniques to use to handle missing values. Next, we also see some duplicate values depending on the problem at hand. Duplicate values could skew results So we may want to think about removing these. And again, in the affiliation column, we see bounty hunter and we are only looking for rebels or empire. So we will need to figure out another way to handle the observation. So we are ready to choose our machine learning algorithm and we go ahead and choose one, but we find out that the affiliation column needs to be encoded. This means that the machine learning algorithm doesn't accept text-based values or categorical values as the target attribute affiliation. So we will need to encode these values into a 0 or 1 or numeric values. Now this is just a simple example of a few different techniques and ways that we can start thinking about transforming or preparing our data. So in summary, what we are trying to do is take data that's unprepared or dirty and transform it into something that is actually useful, something that we can actually consume within our model. You might be asking questions like, okay, well, I understand that we need to transform our data. I know we need to clean it up, but how do we actually do this? Well, luckily, there is a few different tools within AWS that helps us transform our data and get it ready for our machine learning model. A couple of tools that we can use in the machine learning suite are SageMaker and Jupyter Notebooks, as well as AWS Glue, which we have already mentioned is an ETL tool. We can think about transforming our data in more of an ad hoc way using Jupyter Notebooks, and then in AWS Glue we can think about creating long-standing transformation jobs that we can run over and over to prepare our data. So if you have any questions that come up on your mind that have to do with data transformations or ETL jobs, just think of AWS Glue. Alright, so that's the end of the concepts of the data preparation. If you have any questions about anything I have discussed, please write it on the comment section and I'll try to answer it. Thanks for watching the tutorial. In the next video, we will talk about how categorical encoding plays an important role in data preparation. If you like the video, do share it and subscribe it. Thank you.